Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Conflict of Heroes, the World War II skirmish game, specifically the solo play. And a quick disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this one. If you watch the channel, you probably already know that I enjoy my solo war games, and I've heard this is a really fun, flexible solo system. Is that true? Let's find out and get to the list. So to start out at my number 5, I'm going to talk about something a little weird, but that might bother a lot of people, and that's the weirdness with the solo expansion for the game and the different editions. So the solo expansion was made for the second edition of Conflict of Heroes, but then they took some of the core rules for solo and applied it to the main game and created a third edition. So in a way, the solo rules in the third edition are almost identical, but then you have the weirdness that the second edition components don't match up, like they'll refer to the wrong hex side or the wrong card number. Now, the reason this is my number 5 is that it's pretty easy to get around. They have resources on the game's page that shows you how to update everything, but I think it might bother some gamers having to print things out or make calls for edition differences. But with those negatives out there, I'm going to kind of flip them on their head for my number 4, a full-on pro, and that's the huge variety in scenarios available. Because you don't just have the solo scenarios in the solo expansion, which includes both highly varied one-off scenarios as well as campaigns, but they also took all the scenarios from the core game and converted them to the solo system. If you go to the website, you can get those. And the system is flexible enough that you can really take any scenario and with a few little tweaks and figuring out a few things for the AI, you can basically play it. I just think it's great that with a little digging and work, there is a ton of solo content to explore. I have another pro for my number 3, and that's the way units activate in the game, specifically with the solo and third edition rules and how you spend your command points. Instead of having a you go, I go system like a lot of tactical squad games, Conflict of Heroes breaks activations into minute actions. Like I move my guy one space, then you might shoot at me, then I move a different guy another space, then 2 of your people might move, and then I rally this guy. You have these little back and forth actions very fast. And in a system that funnily enough reminds me of Games Workshop's Blood Bowl, each of these actions is kind of a push your luck element, because each time you do something you have a chance of exhausting your unit for the turn, and that's where these command points come in. They let you boost your rolls, mitigate your luck, or activate units that have already been spent for the turn. Overall, it brings lots of fun decisions to the game and lots of frenetic action. But we are coming down to a mix for my number 2, and that's focused on the solo AI itself. And to start with the pros, this is, as I already said, an incredibly flexible system. It's really amazing how well it works with lots of different scenarios, how the AI will move and act in surprising and sometimes illogical, but still fun and challenging ways. But the negative side of this one is kind of a callback to my number 3, because since you have so many small, quick actions for the AI to resolve and then for you to resolve, the fact that you have to draw a card and kind of parse out which action they'll do and which unit will take that action over and over and over again, while quick, can sometimes get wearing and a little dull. And we're staying right at that mix level for my number 1, which is focusing on the randomness and the balance of the game. And don't get me wrong, this is a dice-based and card-based war game. We know there's going to be a lot of randomness here. And on the positive side, I think the game needs that randomness for variety within a scenario, so it plays out differently each time. And it's also a great source of the excitement. When you get that huge whiff or that amazing attack that takes out a key unit, it's really fun. So for me at least, the negative here isn't the randomness itself, but how it can contribute to balance and swinginess. If things really go your way and you luck out with some key actions and some key attacks, the scenarios can be a cakewalk, and if it goes the opposite way, they can be almost impossible. And the problem I sometimes had playing this one is that it rarely stuck that landing of keeping things tense and challenging, but not too impossible. It often swung to the extreme, so it wasn't consistently satisfying. Overall, I think Conflict of Heroes is a really cool tactical system, probably at its best with competitive, but solo works really well, surprisingly smoothly. So I think this is definitely one to check out for those tactical combat and wargame fans out there if you haven't already. But if you don't like randomness, you don't like swinginess in your scenarios, or you don't want to muddle through some weirdness in the edition changes, you might want to avoid this one. And hey, if you want to see a full solo playthrough of the game, click the link that just popped up. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.